Good evening, Gearheads. Welcome to your Sunday night with Speed City, live from Austin, Texas. This is Jon Massengale, and I'm in the studio in Austin. I'm joined by my cohorts, Jonathan Green and Bob Varsha, and Bob's in Atlanta. And Jonathan, you're still down in New Zealand, and looks like you've got a buddy there next to you.
I do. I have Dallas's own Jett Bowling, who's been racing down here for his second season. Obviously, we came on the show before he left, and we did some interviews then. But he's been, like myself, traipsing around New Zealand for 4 weeks, hard at work. I've been just watching him and talking a lot. We've got one more weekend to go, 3 more races to go, and we are 12 in.
All right. Well, Jett, we'll get into it in a minute. Let me talk about what we're going to talk about on the show today, because we are going to talk a lot about the Castrol Toyota Formula Regional Oceania Championship. We're going to talk some Formula One stories. There's been some interesting news this week, considering how slow it kind of seems, but there's some interesting stuff. And we have, I think this is an exclusive, because COTA just tweeted out and posted on Instagram a little photo of some repaving out at the track, just kind of out of the blue, on Friday night. And I was like, what the heck is that? And so I rung up Bobby Epstein. I actually texted him, and we'll get into what Bobby said is going on out at COTA later in the show. But we're going to start
being Circuit of the Americas.
Yes, at COTA, Circuit of the Americas.
For folks who are unfamiliar.
Mm-hmm. If you're unfamiliar with COTA, then I really don't know what to tell you. So anyway,
all right, let's not get snobby.
He's snappy today. Watch it, Bob.
It's because it's 80 degrees outside. It's a gorgeous sunny day in Austin. It's the typical frigid. I have a jacket on in the studio, but I'm tired of yelling at Casey about that. Let's talk about racing with Jett Bowling from Dallas. How are you, Jett?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm really glad to be here.
Well, I'm sure it's lovely in Dallas too, but it's New Zealand. I'm sure it's fantastic down there.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day. It's probably like mid-60s, sunny. It's beautiful.
Well, tell us about what's going on with you. I know you're not up in the standings right now, but Jonathan seems to be really upbeat about what's going on with you.
Yeah, it's been good progress. Sadly, the positions and the results aren't what we want, but the progress is still really good. It's a super strong field down here, and yeah, we're struggling more than we thought we would, but it's really good progress, and we're showing true promise. Yeah.
Very nice. Well,
is this your first year in the series, Jett?
No, I went in 2024 as well.
Okay.
I did all 5 rounds last year, and I'm doing all 5 this year as well.
What attracted you in the first place to the racing series?
Yeah, well, I ran with Kiwi Motorsport in the US Formula 4 series, and they run the team that I run with here in New Zealand. So they obviously offered, and it made sense to go because I needed seat time, and seat time was a big priority for me because I started racing later than most other drivers, and it was the off season in America, as we'd call it. So it made sense to come here and just get more seat time in the off season.
Well, you're in Taronga this week, and talk about that circuit, that track.
Yeah, we just got back. We just left Taronga, or Invercargill, where Taronga is, and it's definitely old school. Yeah, I made a mistake, and I ended up in the wall, and yeah, it reminds me of some American tracks like Road America, where if you make a mistake, it'll let you know it pretty quick. So, but it's pretty sweet.
So, how are you feeling after that, by the way?
Yeah, I'm all good. It wasn't too bad. The gravel did most of the slowing down, so I got my hands off the wheel in time and feet off the pedals, so I'm all good.
Yeah, I've seen
that's the way to do it. Let me get back to your experience in the series. You say you started later than most, and you're right. You say you got into karts when you were 15. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. I started karting when I was 15. I really wanted to go kart when I was probably around 12, but my parents kept saying, no, it's not safe. It's not safe. And then finally I begged enough, and I guess Santa Claus bought me a go-kart. So, yeah.
I think that's another part of the story that you need to think about. He's up against Lindblad, who really is odds on now to be a reserve driver for RB this year. And it's amazing how tight the whole series is. Most of these kids have been racing karts since they were 4. And this is only Jett's second year of racing cars. And so it's pretty impressive. And he really has jam-packed it, doing Macau, doing Freca, 2 seasons of this, 3rd in FR, heading heading back to the States. So he's on the hurry up course, if you will. He's doing a crash course in motor racing and coming up out on top. I mean, yes, he had a crash this weekend, but for most of last year, very clean indeed, and really impressive. And like you said, not from a racing family, but both your parents love sports. You were a baseball guy, right?
Yeah, I played baseball for pretty much 15 years before I started racing, so tried and true.
Carrollton, is that where you grew up? Out in Carrollton, outside Dallas?
I was born in Carrollton, but I grew up in Coppell, just outside Dallas.
Okay, yeah.
So what's the plan? Because you are on such a steep learning curve, are you patient enough to do, more of this early seat time type of junior series racing, or are you aiming for something higher soon?
Yeah, it's a bit hard. Obviously, I have aspirations to reach the high level of motorsport, but I think I'm pretty understanding in that, I got into it late, so I kind of have to, work harder. So I guess the big goal for 2025 is just seat time as well as it was in 2024, just because I haven't, had my butt in a go-kart this far off the ground since I was 5 years old. I kind of got to fill in the gaps when I can. So I got to be patient for 2025, and hopefully 2026 maybe is when we make another step up.
Yeah, Jett, you've essentially got a 10-year, the other drivers have got a 10-year head start. I mean, it's not unusual at all for them to start at 5 years old.
Yeah, that's the kind of annoying part, but I'm happy to tackle a challenge, and it's nice to see the progress I've had in such a short window.
And Bob, I could answer that question. Do you remember we did the Carrera Cup North America, both at Miami and Vegas? Do you remember Ryan Yardley, who was at the sharp end? That's his coach. That's his
He's your mentor.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, he's been a huge help. It was funny. He raced with Kiwi in the US for Formula Regional, the same series I did in 2024, and he happened to just be at a race, and he said, "Hey, I can coach you for this race, no charge," and he was kind of just going to try it out, and I ended up having like my best weekend ever in a race car, and so it was more of my dad who said, like, "You're coming to every weekend now," and it's been a great relationship ever since.
Yeah, we need that magic dust as we go along here. Now, Ryan Yardley's a stud, so you're getting good information. That's great.
Yeah, he's been super helpful.
I'd stay away from the magic dust,
In fact,
whatever Bob's
leave
talking
this week
about.
to go and test his Porsche.
What's that, Greenie?
I said he had to leave this weekend to go and do his own testing for the Porsche North American Championship himself. Yep.
Cool. Which series are you going to run?
I'm definitely going to do the Formula Regional US Series again. Yeah, it'll be, this is my first time here in New Zealand doing the same series twice, which is a big thing. So we're going to do that again in the US, and then I don't know, we may try and pick up something else. We're looking around, just like I said, seat time's a big goal, so we got to figure out how we're going to meet that.
So, Jett, let's talk about that process. You say you're going to try to do the Formula Regional Series. Are you talking to teams? Are you talking to sponsors to help you find those teams? Because we know it costs money to do all this. How's this process going?
Right. Yeah, well, the team side honestly comes pretty easy because I ran with Kiwi in the US last year, and I'm running with Kiwi now in New Zealand. So the obvious choice is Kiwi again, and that's who we're going to go with most likely. There's really not a better choice out there for that series, so that's easy. We are talking to sponsors. There's some things I wanted to do with some charities, some hospitals in Dallas. Just trying to bring the car to hospitals and let kids see it, because when I was little, I know I would have loved that stuff. So stuff like that. Obviously, I'm blessed enough to have funding from my parents to help pay for most of it, but I do want to try and do some meetings and kind of experience the business side of racing more, because that's a big part of the career that I don't know a lot about.
And John, I'll make you an instant Jett fan. He's an Aggie, and so's his brother. And so I said, well, we've got to get together with Ben Keating, because he'll be a great inspiration.
Oh, that's right. I remember you saying that. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. If you tell Ben, you're going to get all the support you need.
Yeah, that's the dream, huh?
What were you going to say, Bob?
I was just going to, excuse me. I was going to point out that you mentioned, Jett, that you were a baseball stalwart until about 12. How did the racing bug bite you? If you have no family background in it, what made you think that's something I want to go do?
Yeah, my grandpa, he was kind of a weekend warrior on the drag strip.
Ah,
I don't think I ever actually made it out to the drag strip though, but I remember we would go to his house and I'd see his, hot rods and
hmm
yeah, and I just love those. I love sitting in them, just, playing with the wheel in the garage, not moving, but
right.
stuff like that. And I remember for Christmas one year I bought like a little racing wheel, and I played Forza, and once I got
Uh,
that, I remember my dad said I played Forza for 8 hours the first day. So I love all vehicles. I love planes, trains, cars growing up, and I guess cars won. And I think video games honestly was a big impetus around that 10 years old because I was like, this is really fun. I was like, there's no way people actually do this for a living. And then I found out people do it for a living. So I was like, why am I throwing balls around when I could be driving race cars? So
yeah, Texas has a rich history in motorsports, and it's good to hear that grandparents strike again.
yeah, right.
Hey guys, let's get into a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have more from Jett Bowling. We'll talk about the Formula Regional down there and some more stories after these messages. Okay, checking in on YouTubers. Andy P, Kevin Kelly, Bill Ricker, Mike Bowles. You made it, Mike. And the last comment, Mike Bowles says, my new favorite home screen is of a yellow car with a guy flipping someone off. Tommy Milner. Yeah, that's become the favorite story from Daytona. Let's see. Kevin
We
Kelly
should tell
says,
everybody the LMP2 winners from Tower Motorsport, including Sebastian Bourdais, were FIFO'd with a tiny technical infraction. So Seabass loses his third class victory at Daytona, which is a shame.
that just happened a few minutes ago, right? Now, I'm joking, but how long did they
It was
wait?
a couple days ago.
I know, it was
A
like
couple days ago.
it was way too long. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, 72 hours, 76 hours, something like that.
Yeah, that's crazy. Kevin Kelly wants to talk Bathurst. I tried to watch Kevin, but I kept getting distracted doing other stuff. I did see, man, that crazy Mercedes crash coming, almost went over the wall. All right, we're coming back. We'll talk.
Hi guys, this is Pierre Gasly and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back to your Sunday night with Speed City. Our guest tonight is Jett Bowling from Dallas, Texas. He's down there at the Formula Regional Oceania Series. And Jett, we were talking about how you haven't moved up in the rankings this year, but Jonathan's been telling me how the competition level, first of all, Arvid Lindblad and some of the others, Lindblad's kind of in a class of his own, I realize that, but the competition level looks crazy high this year. And you admitted it a while ago, you didn't start racing until you were 15 years old, way behind some of these other guys. But let me throw this one to you, Jonathan. The competition, talk about this, because you've been doing this, what, 15 years or more, Jonathan? I can't even keep up now.
That's part of, and we keep, as commentators, we keep talking about what can we compare it to. One comparison is 2020 with Lawson, Sonoda, and Colapinto. The other is 2016 when Lando Norris didn't dominate the way Lindblad has, but it was obvious by the way he raced at just 16 just how good he was going to be. And I remember coming back to you and saying, "Hey, I found the next Lewis Hamilton," and we all chuckled, but hey, he's now a world champion. So there you go. And so, yeah, this is what I love about coming down here is that you get to see these kids before anybody really knows who they are. But I cannot believe in second qualifying, it was 0.185 between the top 12 and you were what, 13th? I mean, 3/10 off it.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, you were saying to me, what, how many meters or something?
I break 3 meters too early in one corner and it cost me 6 positions. So.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah.
About Arvid Lindblad. I mean, he has arrived on the scene like the Black Knight, with all the results, all the reputation. Red Bull firmly behind him on a path to stardom. What was that like for you and the rest of the guys when this guy arrives? Was it just awe? Was it annoyance? How did you feel when you heard this guy was coming, and then when you met him in the flesh?
I think annoyance is probably the best word, honestly. I remember it was about 3 weeks before I flew down to New Zealand from Texas, and one of my buddies who I ran FR with in the US texted me. He said, "Hey, Arvid is most likely going to New Zealand." And I was like, you're joking. That's stupid. He wouldn't do that. And then I saw the announcement and I was annoyed. There's no way. I was annoyed at first, but then you have to look at it like, hey, this is, arguably the best of his age. You want to compare yourself to the real deal. And when I met him in the flesh, it's not like, obviously he's some god. He's just a 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid. So, he's my opponent, and I've got to look at him the same way as I would anybody else in the grid.
Attaboy.
Yeah, I love the fact that you said
Yeah.
you want to race against the best. That's right. You don't want to you don't want to go in and clean the field up, but you want to compare yourself. In fact, who was it? Will Brown said the same thing. The champion, the supercars champion, said exactly the same thing. He said, "I want to compare myself against this young guy," and that's great, Jett.
Well, and it does, when you look at the data, and that's all that matters to these drivers, and more importantly, these team managers who may employ them. And when you consider that, at most times you're half a second, maybe off Lindblad, that tells you that at 2 years in a car, he's on the right path, as are all the guys in his position who are behind. Michael Shin, who gets second yesterday, Zagazeta, who I know we talked about and has had a win. All of these guys are feeling the same way, both annoyance and respect, and also, hey, this is where I stack up against the world's very best. He won the Macau Grand Prix. He's won 4 races in FIA F3. He's going into F2, and he's going to have a super license point when he leaves next weekend. So, you can't get a better benchmark. We often talk in this series about the future of what might happen to certain drivers, but his future's today. His future's arrived. He's won all 4 trophies so far, which has never been done. And I have my own annoyance with him in that he won't give us a decent interview because he says, you've just won this historic trophy that Jack Brabham won, and Damon Hill and Graham Hill and all this. And he's like, I don't really think about that. I just want to win. I've just got to get super license points. And we're all like, oh, come on, be a bit more,
Yeah, be a kid. Come on.
That's his focus.
Well,
yeah,
that's what they're looking for at Red Bull. A machine.
Yeah, exactly. He's in the right place to he's playing the role perfectly. And I mean, he didn't win the other day on race 1 on Saturday, and he got 3rd. And you should see the podium pictures. We were all laughing because he was sulking, and he gave a real Max interview, which is like, I don't care about 3rd. I want to win. I want to win. And I was like, God, that is so Max Verstappen. But hey, if you want to emulate the next big thing, that's the way to go.
I guess so.
Hey, Jonathan, you were talking about all the drivers that have come through there. I was looking at Taratanga. And by the way, Jett, we were talking, I said this week. This week is next week for you. So you're already into next week. We're still in last week.
It's Monday here.
It's Monday. But Taratanga, I saw, do you guys know who holds the record lap? Unless somebody changed it this weekend. But you know who holds it? It's Lance Stroll.
Liam Lawson, 2020.
No, Lance Stroll.
Lance Stroll?
Lance Stroll.
Oh.
Lance Stroll, yeah. In 2015. Wow. And now Liam Lawson holds it for FR. So we're both sort of right, but if you just combine the two series.
Lance Stroll was in a faster FT50, a lighter car, before they made the FT50, which is a turbo heavier car. And, I think Jett will confirm that. So, yes, the current of this particular car, Lawson, is the current lap record holder. And what's funny is that during the race, the sports manager texted me and said, Arvid's going for the lap record because he was going quicker and quicker. And he missed it by 0.135.
Well, I mean, it just goes to show the people that come through there. Well, Jonathan, you talked about Zagazeta, and I watched that race.
Yeah.
And, man, he had a rocket start. He had a John Force-like launch, and he was he was past Arvid Lindblad within the first 150 feet or so. But we have an interview you did with him. You want to set it up for us?
Yeah, Matias Zagazeta is quite unique. He's from Peru, and so I don't know. I don't know if you've ever heard of any Peruvian racing drivers, but I haven't. And I think what's unique is that he's also got completely, the car is covered in Peruvian sponsors. So there's a lot of interest. He reminds me in some ways of the support that Maldonado got from the oil companies. Now, okay, he didn't have the best of Formula One careers, but this Peruvian could well go all the way. He's 21 years old. He's already been in FIA F3. He's going back to work with Dams in F3. And as you say, he won... he ran a reverse race at the first round, but then got taken out and had a damaged wing in Hampton Downs. And so he's been mid-pack in terms of the overall championship, but he's always been at the sharp end. So it could be a very different 5 weeks had he not had just one crash. But anyway, he got the win at Mansfield, and afterwards I spoke to him. Well, Matias, a win in race 1 here at Tarantonga, and you're second of the championship, but you did this one in style.
Yeah, well, pretty happy with the result, of course. I think it was a fantastic race from my side. Qualifying was really good, bouncing back from the other weekends where it was really tough. So I was really happy with the qualifying, and then it was all about the start because it's quite difficult to overtake as well. So, yeah, my start was really good, and then the pace was just fantastic. So I'm super happy with the job we've done with the team, with myself, and just overall really, really happy.
I guess you didn't really see what happened behind you when Michael Shea went off and caused the stoppage to the racetrack. But once you now found out that the bricks had come up, it had to be.
Yeah, for sure. I think the race directors, to be honest, have been doing a fantastic job for the whole championship. In Mansfield, I think the way they handled the rain in race 3 was fantastic. The way they've handled it today was also quite good because safety is the most important thing. And yeah, I think it was a good decision. But of course, as a driver, I want to win because I felt I had control of the race. And I would have won the race, but anyways, with the red flag, it doesn't take away anything of the job that we have done, so I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was my next question. Control of the race. You definitely got the start, and you pulled about 0.6 of a second, but then by the time, just before the stoppage, Arvid had taken a couple of tenths out of you. Not enough, but did you feel that you had that, in hand?
Yeah, for sure. I think I was making a couple of mistakes in some laps, so yeah, I think then it was just about just tightening up a little bit. The wind was getting a bit stronger as well by points, so yeah, I think it was quite manageable. It's really difficult to overtake, and of course I wouldn't think Arvid would also try and risk a move here because it's a bit dangerous as well, the track overall. But I think looking at a championship perspective, he's sitting in P2, his rival is P3, so it wouldn't have made a lot of sense. But overall, I think it was in control.
One thing I noticed, and we saw it in slow-mo, is that your left rear sort of had a line around it, as though you've got pickup. Did you notice that?
Yeah, so there's quite a lot of pickup off line, and there was, I think, one lap that I went a bit wide, especially in turn 2. So I did feel a bit of the pickup, also in the front. I don't know if you just checked the rears, but it was on both tires. So yeah, that's what I meant with making small mistakes. So for tomorrow, I just need to make sure to perfect that.
If this keeps on going for the rest of the weekend, you can pick up something out of race 2. Do you feel that you're still very much in the hunt?
Yeah, well, I mean, I just take it race by race. I had really tough race weekend number 2 and race weekend number 3. So I'm not sure about it, but I will keep pushing until the end. I think the most important thing for me is to be ready for the European season in Formula 3. And I think the way that I have bounced back from the last 2 weekends has been really good.
I bet your phone's blowing up from Peru, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, no, it's really nice. It's amazing to see the support from everyone back home. It was a good time as well, so it's around 8:30 p.m. from yesterday. So my parents were watching with some friends, so it's really nice, of course, to see this. And the support from my sponsors as well, which I will take also time to mention, is Win Internet. We have also Sumtec, Omnisys, recently also DirecTV.
All Peruvian, yeah?
All Peruvian companies.
Who
else am I missing? Andalucita as well. Yeah.
What is that?
So they export minerals. They export minerals to Europe. It's a businessman in Peru that is very passionate about racing, about cars, and I'm super grateful and super thankful for all the support that he and all my sponsors have been giving me, because honestly, without them, I would not be able to be here. So I'm really happy.
Will you take this suit and back to Europe and continue with these sponsors, and tell us what you're doing?
Yeah, basically I will continue with the same sponsors. Only thing is I also have recently DirecTV, which is a Latin American company, and also Oakberry, which will be sponsoring me as well for next year. They were supporting me last year as well throughout the whole season, so it's really nice to see the support again for the next year. So it shows the trust and the support they're giving me.
And what will you be racing next year?
So in this year I'll be racing in FIA Formula 3 with Dams. So yeah, a very challenging year ahead, a long year ahead as well. So hopefully I can have more moments like this in F3.
Well done again, race 1. Congratulations.
Perfect, thank you.
See, just like Jett Bowling was talking about earlier, he was giving us the nice words about Kiwi Motorsport. Lots of sponsor talk. These guys are getting training down there. They're not just getting training on the track;
Sure.
they're getting training, media training. They're learning how to do all this.
And just for context, I got on the net to look up Peruvian racing drivers, and there have been a pretty good number, including 2 Peruvian drivers who raced in the inaugural Daytona 500 in 1959. And Jonathan, you may remember, as I did when I was reminded, for years, Peru had a very strong road racing
Right.
series, and that was the hot place to sell your IMSA car. You know, if you were moving on to something else, Peru was the first place you looked to sell on. So yeah, it's not a desert when it comes to racing.
No, and they've got a lot of rally interest down there too. They have for many years. I think I feel like a Peruvian podcast coming on, John.
I did Google it too, Bob, and in fact, I dropped it in the Zoom chat. Wikipedia Peruvian race drivers. There's not very many on that page. There's only like 7 of them, but yeah, I know that you and Jonathan both have that history.
And one of them, Eduardo Dibos.
Yeah,
Eduardo Dibos, who raced in that Daytona 500. That just rings a bell. You know, I don't know quite why, but anyway.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get our next break in really quick. And when we come back, we'll have more Formula One stories, and including the Circuit of the Americas for Bob, the repaving that's been going on. Back after these messages. All right, let's see what the YouTubers are doing. Kevin Kelly wants us to... Hey, Bob, did you watch Bathurst?
Everybody knows all the...
You're right. You're absolutely right. Did you watch Bathurst, Bob?
Who won LMP2?
No, I didn't.
I watched.
I regret it. I didn't know it was on.
Ah,
2-car.
well, you should get on Kevin Kelly's text trails.
Well, part of the reason I'm not in Atlanta, I'm in beautiful Santa Rosa Beach, Florida.
That's right. I forgot
Hence
about
the
that.
decorations behind me.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, that's not my office decor. No,
I knew
we're
that.
just
I
wrapping
forgot.
up a week of vacation after Daytona.
Nice.
If you hear a jet go over, it's because we're close to 3 major military bases.
He went to Florida for work,
I
and then he
didn't
went
see
back to
Bathurst
Florida
either.
for vacation.
Yeah, I watched.
That's right.
Jet
saw
watched
that
it,
crash.
John.
Oh, good. We'll get a report from
I
Jet.
watched probably about 45 minutes of it worth just.
All right, coming back.
And I know a little bit about some of the competitors there, like Will Brown. And
All right, here
Hi, this is Jeff Gordon, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back to your Sunday night with Speed City. Jon Massengale, Bob Varsha, Jonathan Green, and our guest, Jett Bowling, American racer from the Dallas area. And we're going to talk about Bathurst because during the break, we figured out that Jett had watched a little bit of it. I watched a little bit of it. We got a couple of listeners that are on YouTube that watched a little bit of it. But Jett, what was your take of it?
Yeah, I didn't see much. Sadly, most of what I watched was the safety car parade, but which is probably as expected, you know. But it was sweet, you know. I saw Will Brown in the car as he raced with me just a couple weeks ago. Lauren Heinrich, who I actually got the chance to meet at an IMSA race. So a couple of guys who I look up to. So it was really cool to watch. Sadly, yeah, it was a bit of a safety car parade, but it was, you know, obviously an amazing event to watch.
Well, it was won by the BMW's
John,
1-2.
Will Brown and Rob Feeney, his teammate, will be racing this weekend at Highlands. They're coming from Bathurst straight here.
That's right. He's coming back, isn't he? Yeah, he's coming because he did like the first 3 rounds and then skipped just this Taratonga.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep. And well, he missed 2. He missed 2 rounds, which Tommy Smith took away, and he's now gone back to the States to do the Indy Next Tour. But he's bringing his teammate, his Red Bull teammate. So it's going to be interesting to see 2 supercar drivers up against each other and Jett in the Grand Prix, the 69th Grand Prix.
Oh, that's cool, Jett. That'll be fun. Put yourself up against those guys. I was just looking on racer.com at their article about it. They said the BMW takes a 1-2 at Bathurst. And that's Kevin and Sheldon Vanderlinde became the second pair of brothers to win at the famed Australian circuit with co-drivers Augusto.
Yeah, that's the Belgian WRT team. They are a real powerhouse. They're always
That's
up
Rossi's
front
team,
at
right?
the Spa 24 hours. Beg pardon?
Is that Rossi's team as well? He's in that team?
Rossi's team?
Rossi, the motor.
I mean Valentino?
Valentino.
Yeah, Valentino.
He was racing it. Kevin Kelly will tell us. Let's look. Because I know Valet was definitely.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, he's in the BMW. He's in the second BMW team.
Yeah. I was searching up highlights of it, and there was a YouTube video, and it said Valentino Rossi hits the pit wall, and I watched it, and it was like 2-minute video, and he like barely scraped the wall. I was like, really? That's the news? We're going to show that he rubbed the wall. You couldn't even see any mark on the car. But
listen, but when he sneezes, it's news.
That's true.
Yeah,
that
right.
is true. You know what? That's a good segue, Jonathan, because it reminds me of Lewis Hamilton. You know, anything that he does, right? And he crashed his car this week testing for Ferrari.
I know.
And it was headline news. And the race did a full 12-minute video. And I was thinking, okay, what the heck are they going to talk about for 12 minutes? Because they don't know anything. Ferrari didn't release any news about it. And sure enough, it was pretty much a 12-minute video about nothing. It was pretty good, considering it was 12 minutes about nothing. But it was pretty good.
There's a lot of those on the internet, John.
Yeah,
you mean YouTube has more videos than cat videos? That's all I've really been able to find so far. But anyway, I mean, look, it was crazy that was news, but it just goes to show what a huge deal this is that Lewis Hamilton is moving to Ferrari. Every every possible thing that happens during this period is going to be headline news in our world.
And that's why they sent him out first in testing, because something like this might happen. If they had sent Charles Leclerc out first and he biffed the car, then Lewis wouldn't get that all-important seat time that you heard Jett talk about. So Lewis goes out first. Yeah, worst comes to worst. But, they'll be fine because it's a car that Leclerc has raced before. The question is, has Lewis got his arms around it now? Plus all the other stuff that they think about, communicating with the pits. What are your codes? What are the descriptives that the team uses for one thing or another so that other teams can't figure out what they're doing? There's a lot to learn besides driving the race car itself and learning the steering wheel.
Jonathan, so should they go ahead and keep Lewis Hamilton since he's crashed the car? Or do you think that he should give him another shot?
Well, he's put, I think, 400 million on the stock price of Ferrari as a company. So, yeah, they could put him on ice and he never needed to race again. He just needs to wear that red suit. I think they showed a picture of him and the worth of each sponsor that he's bringing from HP all along. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, he is a walking billboard.
And he's taking home an estimated 50 million British pounds a year with bonus clauses that may raise that number to 100 million.
Yeah, wow.
Nice work if you can get it.
Yeah. So, Jett, there's an aspiration for you.
Yeah, I saw that same graphic, and I think it was within an hour of Lewis posting his first picture, all of the sponsors on his suit, their stock price went up to combine a total of $400,000 in revenue. So he's definitely a big deal. And, I don't think maybe crashing the car was a good thing because now there's stories all over the internet about it,
Right.
Okay, well, here's a segue
Good
for
point.
you. So you said about 50 mil, Jonathan, plus bonuses? So
I said that.
Yeah, that's
Bob said, so this week at Sotheby's, a 1954 Mercedes-Benz W196R Stromlenwagen sold for 51 million euros. And so Lewis could spend all of his earnings in 1 year on this car. This car was driven by 5-time champion Juan Manuel Fangio. You might have heard of that name, of course. And he drove that car to victory at the 55 Buenos Aires Grand Prix. Also driven by Sir Sterling Moss in the 55 Italian Grand Prix. And I had to Google it. I had to do the Google Translate on Stromlenwagen, and I think basically it means streamlined car. But it is a fascinating.
Well, the other thing is now, John, you know your buddy Jerry Seinfeld, he could sell you his car for if you've got 26 million, he'll sell you his Porsche 917 that's driven by Brian Redman.
I offered him 25 million in one because he turned down 25, but I haven't heard back yet. I texted him.
Okay.
So I haven't heard anything, but
it's a car about nothing, John.
Brilliant. All right, next story is one that I want to get into and a little bit serious, actually a lot serious. And it's the story, Jonathan, you brought this topic to the show today, talking about the stewards, because there's been lots of discussion about the Formula One stewards, paid versus unpaid. And of course, Johnny Herbert no longer being a steward and the reasoning behind that. Why don't you kick us off, Greeny?
Yeah, so this week, Johnny Herbert, who controversially left Sky as a pundit and then has been a pundit for other entities, magazines, TV shows, and even betting. But he was also an FIA steward. And the obvious conflict of interest is if you're pontificating, let's say, on a decision, and Jett can understand this, because when you get pulled to the steward's office, you know, they're supposed to be impartial. And if you've been in the press one week criticizing a particular driver, as he had with Max, but of course he criticizes lots of drivers as a pundit, that's what your job is. But it seemed to be, you know, and some of the team managers have agreed, and I agree, that you can't hold a position in the media and then actually make decisions about penalty points for drivers. It's incompatible, and it's a conflict of interest, as they say.
And Bob,
I think there were several surprising things about that. One is that the stewards don't get paid. You know, they have fairly liberal expense accounts, I can tell you, but there's no salary. There's no incentive to make a career out of being the best, rules interpreter you can. And I think that's the critical element here. And it's a bit of a surprise that Formula One, at least to me, has taken this approach. Formula One was unlike anything we have here in America. Drivers claiming or announcing a year and a half advance that I'm going down the pit lane to a different team next year. You can imagine if an NFL quarterback announces at the Super Bowl that a year and a half from now, I'm going to another team because I've done a deal with them. Happens all the time in European sports, soccer, and certainly in Formula One. Look at what Lewis did when he announced it right at the end of his Mercedes career that he's going to become a Ferrari driver. I mean, we'd be tearing our hair out in the United States. So for Formula One to finally take a position on apparent conflicts of interest is something fairly new for a 75-year-old sport.
I'd like to put a little note on this that Zach Brown, motorsports CEO for McLaren, said. He was speaking at the Autosport Business Exchange in London this week, and he said, the biggest thing we need to do is approach the stewarding system, he said, to have part-time, unpaid stewards in a multi-billion-dollar sport where everything is on the line to make the right call. It is a technical job, and when you get it right, no one says great job, but I don't think we're set up for success by not having full-time stewards. But Jonathan, I want to get Jett's take on all this too.
Back to Jett. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to put him on the spot with Formula One, but he does work back in the States with one of my co-commentators, Scott Goodyear. And I would hazard a guess, and certainly you'll have an opinion, that if he wasn't paid to come, he wouldn't. And you would lose out on what is a very valuable guy in your learning.
Yeah, I mean, stewards are, it's motorsports so weird where, so much is out of your hands as a driver, whether it's, reliability issues with the car or even, just racing incidents, and it gets judged by the stewards. And I think I look to the MLB, obviously being a ex-baseball player, where they have, the minor league set up for umpires, and the better those umpires perform, they get to the MLB. And that's how it is for even race directors in the FIA, the FRECA race director is looking to go to F3, the F3 race director, and so on. It goes up the ladder. So I don't see why the steward shouldn't have a similar ladder. You make the better decisions, then you go to F1, and you want to be the best steward you can be, where if you're kind of just a volunteer, there's no real strive to, make the best choice you can make.
Good point, Jett. And the NFL's the same way. Those guys in the NFL, they stun me how they get that call right so many times. I'm like, how do you do that in real time? You know, we have to watch it 4 times on a slow-mo and to get it right.
Not
and they get
always,
it right.
but some. Yeah.
Not always.
Yeah.
But Bob, also, we haven't
Yeah.
talked about the wagering, the gambling side of the Johnny Herbert story. That was fascinating too. That doesn't
Yeah.
seem right, does it?
No, well, certainly not to our puritanical standards here in the United States. That Johnny apparently is a spokesperson for a gambling house. You know,
Yeah.
you'll notice in all of the gambling, and gambling has basically taken over American sports, but you don't hear well, I was about to say you don't hear athletes talking about it, but there's an ad with Kevin Hart and LeBron James talking about gambling. It's huge, and it's going to be interesting to see how far the creative minds creating these commercials and sponsorship relations go with the athletes themselves before people start raising questions of conflict of interest. There's already an NBA player who's being investigated for potentially shaving points in the NBA finals a couple of years ago. So, you know, it's not out of the realm of possibility at all.
All right, well, let's get our last little quick break in, and we got some more Formula One, and also that news story from Bobby Epstein talking about paving at Circuit of the Americas. Back after these messages. All right, let's see if the YouTubers are still hanging with us here. Kevin Kelly's excited about Valentino Rossi, number 46. Stewart by Noel says it was the old spec BMW. Okay. Yep, not the Evo. They're having a conversation
Jett
about
just
that.
said Pete Rose. I mean, there's your best example.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
And Tani. Yeah.
Yeah.
More recently, yeah.
Hey, Stewart by Noel says
Rossi
we'll
was
talk
in the
about
second place car.
Stewart by Noel says we'll talk about Haas and international difficulty. What are you talking about there, Stewart? Did I miss something there? You know, Bob?
You talk about Willis.
What you talking about, Willis?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
He said Haas and an international difficulty. What did they have? I missed that.
Not that I'm aware of.
Unless Nikita's coming back.
Yeah, there's an international.
Haas the racing team, or Haas the racing team, or Haas the
Don't know.
team owner / bazillionaire businessman.
I know. We're coming
who
back.
Also did some time inside.
I'm Liam Lawson, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Thank you, Liam Lawson, for bringing us back. I want to talk about Circuit of the Americas because I think it was Friday night. I'm looking right now. I saw on their Instagram account that they posted. Yeah, it was Friday night. They said late night track repaving session. And Casey, I bet you can find that little image and throw it up for the YouTubers. I just put it in the chat, but it's showing.
What corner is it, John?
I'm getting to that. Just hold your water. So it's a great photo, and it is just showing them paving, big machine and the tower in the background and the sunset and all that. But I thought, well, wait a minute. I thought we repaved most of the track, and that is the key, because I reached out to Bobby Epstein and I just texted him this morning and said, hey, Bobby, I saw this tweet and this post, and I said, what's going on with that? And he texted back and he said, it is the last section, turns 3 through 7 in the S's. It says, now that a complete full repave of the track is done, it said, and a removal of all the wrongly installed pipes that went under it, causing most of the bumps. He said, we had to use the off-peak months to complete the full repave, so it took a couple of seasons to do it all. So, yeah, if we remember 2023 and then actually into 24, about this time, they were repaving most of the track. They didn't get all of it, but they got most of it. So this is what they did to finish it. And I had never heard anything about the pipes, the incorrectly installed pipes. Had you, Jonathan?
No, I hadn't. But I mean, talking to people like Jett who've raced it, and certainly the motorcycle riders, they talk about you often talk about tilted circuits rippling up at, let's say, 12, where it's heavy braking with Formula One, but these were odd bumps at odd places that didn't seem to make sense. Like 2, where you're coming into 2, and suddenly you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
And with that in mind, not tangentially, they've made some changes once again to the Melbourne circuit in Australia for round 1 in March.
Yeah, it's a good segue.
Particularly at turn 6, where George Russell had his big accident at the end of last year's race. So they've reprofiled the corner and done some more. Actually, not paving; they're actually bringing a gravel trap right down to the outside of the corner, and they're using some interesting curbing concepts that I had never heard before. We think of the curbs as the rumble strips that pop up out of the road. They also have negative curbing, which actually is a concave surface, which I'd be interested in having a closer look at and have someone explain to me how it works.
Negative curving. Never heard that phrase before. Johnny Green?
Well, the idea, I think,
go ahead, Bob.
You want the drivers to know where the edge of the track is without launching them the way you would over a
that makes sense.
Sleeping policeman, as my old colleague Steve Matchett would say.
Yeah. Well, I'll ask you this question, Bob. I'm excited to see Australia at the beginning of the season again. It kind of, I don't know why, it was that way for a long time. It's just a tradition thing. What about you guys?
Oh, absolutely. Go anywhere and race, and I'll be looking forward to it.
Well, there's that too.
There's a good article, John. There's a good article, and I put it in the doc on F1 fans about which teammate will beat the other teammate, and I don't know what you think, Jett, but I think the inter-rivalry this year. Forget the points for a second. The inter-rivalry at Ferrari, at Red Bull, at Williams will be just fascinating.
Yeah. At Alpine, where Jack Doohan is going to be under so much pressure now that they've got Franco Colapinto under contract.
Yeah, he raced the same team as Jett. He raced for Kiwi.
And Freca,
Yep.
That's cool. Yeah, Jonathan, this is a great story. I'm just scrolling through. It's a fun. By the way, this is racefans.net. I love that site for kind of obscure, offbeat stories. I love it. It's a very cool website. But okay, Jett. So we've got. I'm just looking at the. Is there anybody that comes to mind that might be that you would predict as a surprise to beat their teammate this year?
Ooh.
It'd be hard. I think Russell. Go ahead.
I think Leclerc will beat Hamilton just because he has the history with Ferrari, and I think it may take Hamilton a couple weekends to pick up the car. Just because he's been in that Mercedes, and you've heard the drivers talk about how the Mercedes is quite different to drive from other cars, especially with the trajectory, the kind of off trajectory they had the last couple of seasons. I wouldn't be surprised if Lawson almost gives Verstappen a run for his money.
Oh.
I've met Lawson a couple of times, and he's just so serious, so aggressive, and he can lose the smile pretty quick, and I think Max will just make him lose the smile almost permanently. So I'm really excited to see those two butt heads.
I think Carlos Sainz will give Albon not very long before he gets on level terms. It may not be in Australia, but I think Carlos Sainz will get a couple of wins on him, or at least a couple of wins over him wherever they finish.
What about Ollie Behrman and Esteban Ocon? I mean, Ollie just came in. He finished 7th in his first race? I know it was in a Ferrari, but still, he finished 7th in his first race. I remember that because I predicted it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not taking any credit because I just threw a dart at the wall and said, "How about 7th place?" And he did it. Hey, Jett, I like your two choices. I like them a lot, actually. Number one, the question was who would be a surprise, and yes and no. Yes, to some people, the most avid Lewis Hamilton fans are going to go, "Well, of course, Lewis Hamilton's going to be the favorite." But I think honestly, Leclerc might be the favorite to most people. And
I agree.
And
and he needs to be because his reputation just disappear.
Yeah, it's true. And then the other one, Liam Lawson, we saw last year that Liam Lawson basically shot the finger at Fernando Alonso for several races in a row. So I think starting in Austin, maybe Austin in Mexico. So he's not afraid of anybody. I think if Alonso doesn't intimidate him,
And he
Max
had the
is
wrong
not.
car.
Yeah. I think I don't think he's going to be intimidated by Max. I think he's got a serious swagger. What's funny is that I like Liam Lawson's swagger, but he doesn't come off as like an a-hole. You know, he just comes off as like, I got this. I know what I'm doing, and I'm going to be out there being competitive. So I like your choices, Jett.
Well, just for that reason, I'll throw Oscar Piastri getting the better of Lando Norris into that mix.
Ooh, I like that one.
Sure.
Yeah, he's coming on strong.
Man, this is going to be so
good
much
one.
fun. Not only just all these new teammates, but all these rookies. I mean, this is. I mean, with the Hamilton story, this is a season to look forward to. Like, I mean, I can't remember honestly.
Yeah.
All right, let's see, Jonathan. You had another.
We can hope.
You had another good one in here. You wanted to talk more about the race bans for swearing and criticizing FIA. I know we touched on it earlier. Was there some more on that?
Oh my gosh.
There's a connection here because this week Yuki Tsunoda was announced as the reserve driver for Red Bull, and it kind of took me by surprise. I was like, why would you do that? You've got 15 Red Bull juniors, including Lindblad, and then you've got 4 race drivers. So why would you commit a race driver in your second team to the Red Bull, you know? And now there's two theories. One is that Lawson isn't going to cut it, and I think the group here agrees that he is going to cut it. And so the other reason is, and Red Bull aren't emphasizing this, but swearing and breaking the rules in any way will be hard done by the FIA, and you can lose points on your license, and you can be given a ban. And I actually think Helmut Marko and Christian Horner have done this with Tsunoda with a view to 8 points that currently Verstappen has that don't get rescinded till June 30th. So he's got to go through Australia and all the way through literally to the Silverstone Grand Prix without, you know, upsetting anybody, which he manages to do most weekends, and swearing and whatever else. So, you know, it's a reality. And I think actually that's why it relates to New Zealand. That's why Arvid's here, is that they might need him next year.
So, Jett Bowling, are you pro swearing or against swearing?
I'll just say most of the words I say under the helmet are swear words for sure. But obviously we don't have recorded audio, so it's not too big of a drama. But
yeah. Well, that's the point the drivers made. I mean, it's not about pro or con. It's about emotion and passion in the moment. You know,
right.
Why would you? And culture. You know, if English is not your second language, and for a lot of Formula One drivers, is not your first language, I should say, and for a lot of Formula drivers, it's not. I remember Ayrton Senna in an interview apologizing into the ether about his use of English swear words because he said, you know, it doesn't matter that much to me. I didn't know that you all took this so seriously. So, you know.
Yeah, and you grew up around a bunch of British mechanics, which most of
Formula exactly. Is, you can imagine.
You're going to hear a lot of swear words.
Sorry, my humor's just not landing with Bob today. I'm sorry, Bob. It's really poor.
What? Tell you what, tell the drivers to swear in their native tongue, and then everybody will be happy because nobody will know what they're talking about.
Look, we cannot ban swearing because we've already tried robotic AI driving, and it's the most boring thing in the world. And if we have emotionless drivers, it's the same. We have to have the passion in the sport. So if we try to ban swearing, it's just ridiculous. But
and beyond that, you have to have good guys and bad guys. And if swearing makes you a bad guy, fine. You're going to have your fans.
Yeah. Hey, I got
you mentioned the Lawson finger. Well, where does that fit into all of it? He gave Perez the finger, and everybody saw it. It was on air.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, exactly.
And all over social media. So what does that mean?
So verbal swearing is different from finger swearing, I guess is the rule there. Hey, one last story that I want to get in here because I thought this
Max by the way, Max was swearing about the car. He wasn't even talking about a rival.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
He wasn't talking about a driver. So Honda Racing president Kojo Watanabe, I knew I would mess that up. He's basically the boss
Watanabe.
of Watanabe. Thank you. I've said it before. I can't believe I did it. Anyway,
Yeah.
so Red Bull, he's talking about the 2026 engine development. And he said, a quote from him, he says, "Not so easy. We are struggling. Now we're trying our best to show the results next year." That is not what Aston Martin, Lawrence Stroll, Adrian Newey, and everyone else involved in that team wanted to hear about here. And in fact, a quote that I saw on an article that said Adrian Newey had recently said, talking about how to be successful next year, or in 26, he said, "But there has to be a chance that one manufacturer will come out on top and it'll be a power unit dominated regulation. At least it'll start with that." So in other words, he's saying it's the most important thing. And then the power unit manufacturer they're teaming up with is saying they're struggling. Not a great combination. Guys, I'm sorry. I just looked at the clock and we are done. We're out of time. Jett Bowling, thank you very much. Have a great rest of the season down there. Good luck. We're proud of you for being from Texas. And thanks, everybody. Bob Varsha, Jonathan Green, thanks to everyone for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next Sunday night.